It was an evening few will ever forget. Strong thunderstorms that Thursday spawned a devastating EF-1 tornado over northern Kent County, causing widespread destructive damage, downing trees and power lines, leaving hundreds of thousands without power and disrupting lives that lasted for several days. Hello everyone, I'm Chief Meteorologist George Lessens. Hey, this video is what I would label a director's commentary on what took place behind the scenes during that event. I'll give you an inside look at how we were tracking the rapidly developing storms, the science behind the tools we use, and some candid interviews with some of our valuable team members before, during, and after those powerful storms.
This is a severe weather alert. You are watching 13 on your side.
So we began our coverage right around 7:40 in the evening on Thursday. We did this on YouTube Live and Facebook Live, which we usually do for severe weather events. So we started tracking the storms, which we knew were going to come in very, very quickly. And what you're seeing here is what we always start our broadcast with our 13.2 weather network that you can get off the air. So we're going to turn to one of the tools that we use. This is radar scope, and this is one of the tools the professional meteorologists use behind the scenes to really get down and look at the storms in detail. And they indeed just immediately erupted. And you can see not 2 minutes into our broadcast, we had our first severe thunderstorm warning that was issued. So portions of Kent County and southern Newaygo County were already warned for these severe storms. This was almost about a half an hour before the tornadoes actually developed. So when severe thunderstorm warnings are issued, that doesn't mean we aren't going to get tornadoes. It's just that the storms that are developing have the potential to create severe weather. Large hail, which was predicted up to 1 inch in diameter, or 60-mile-per-hour winds, but that also means there could be tornadoes. So anytime you get a severe thunderstorm warning, you should already have a plan in place to go to a place of safe shelter. And again, we were tracking the storms with radar scope, just keeping an eye on where they might end up later on that evening. Shortly after the warning was issued, there was a severe thunderstorm watch that was also issued. Let's go and take a look at the map. You can see that the severe thunderstorm watch was issued right around 7:42, so 2 minutes later. That was going to stay in effect until Friday at 1 a.m. One of the things that we show here, and one of the things that really surprised me, was the Storm Prediction Center out of Oklahoma had maximum hail size up to 2 inches in diameter and maximum wind gusts to 90+ miles an hour. We try to label those every time we do a severe thunderstorm watch, and the winds were of a surprise. The last time I can remember SPC putting out a 90+ mile-per-hour winds for West Michigan was back in the wild winds of 98. And of course, we always show our severe weather definitions in case those folks are not familiar with the terminology, the watches and the warnings. One is be prepared and one is to take action. So we already had severe thunderstorm warnings and you needed to take action. So things took a little bit of an interesting turn. National Weather Service upgraded the severe thunderstorm warning to a tornado possible, which means even though there was just a severe thunderstorm warning in effect, now they had an indication of a tornado possible. That's in this black box right in through here. So already at least 20 minutes before the tornado was observed, there was a tornado possible in this severe thunderstorm warning area. It was for areas of northern Kent County, and then that eventually worked its way down into the Belmont area. It's not the area that was actually under the tornado at the time, but this storm had the capability of producing tornadoes at this time. So one of the other tools we use is what is called hail potential, and that is the storm that we were tracking for large hail right there. It was southeast of Grant. It was verified with quarter-size hail up to a quarter size, and those were the same storms that eventually produced that tornado in northern Kent County. So this is one of the tools, and this is another tool. This is what we call inside the storm. We're looking at shear, velocity, winds. As the winds go from one direction away from the radar, that is in the red, and where it comes into the radar, which is where that radar sweep, that's coming to the radar. When those come very close together, we start to get concerned about maybe some rotation, maybe a tornado. You can already see that kind of sneaking down into extreme northwestern Kent County. And about every 2 minutes, this radar updates. It has to do several spins around and build a little pile of pancakes to try and figure out what is exactly moving on. So that's what I'm doing here, is just kind of querying the inside of the storm. Another one of the tools we use is what we call storm height. That's an indication of how strong the storms could be, how tall they are. And the taller the storm, the greater potential for hail and the greater potential for having those heavy winds come out of the storm. And these were up around 57,000 feet. So these were what we would consider supercell thunderstorms, capable of just dropping the weight of that air down almost about 10 miles to the ground. And of course, that could all flow out and cause not only widespread straight line damage, but it also could spin up a brief tornado. So we continue to track the storms. The severe thunderstorm warning was in effect. We're now at 8:07 in the evening, and we were checking also out over Lake Michigan, just trying to figure out other places that might have severe weather that would impact not only just for northern Kent County, but still that storm was a tornado possible severe thunderstorm warning, which is a little bit higher than just a radar indicated. So we were tracking these storms. I was looking at this little appendage down in through here. Was a little concerned about maybe this looked a little bit like a hook echo here. And so I started thinking that maybe the storm was actually going to be a little bit further south in the warned area. And then just before I switched over to look at that on our velocity, we noticed that a new severe thunderstorm warning had come in, and that was for the rest of Kent County, generally the center and northern sections of Kent County. Another severe thunderstorm warning. This one likely also had indicated a tornado possible, but right now this was in that red box, which is just a radar indicated thunderstorm. No hints of rotation, but my inclination was that storm that was coming down into northeastern Ottawa County might have been the one that they were looking at for the possibility of tornadoes. Now, one of the things that we didn't tell you about on the air, if we could just pause this video, this would be great. One of the things that was going on behind the scenes is that we had a little power surge, and one of our two back-end servers in the weather center got stuck on a task, and it couldn't complete that task. So this type of radar that she was seeing that was looping wasn't keeping up. It had stopped at about this time, and throughout the rest of the evening, through the entire event, that server got stuck. And so you'll see in further broadcasts here where we had to switch over to a different type of radar to continue our tracking, because this one wasn't keeping up with the storms. And as they moved through Kent County, the storms on the one server never got past Ravenna. So we had to switch gears on the fly, and hopefully you didn't notice the difference in the coverage. So we were actually looking at some of the rotation inside the storm as well, but as I noted just a few seconds ago, one of the servers wasn't keeping up, so I was kind of going, where is the rotation down in northern Kent County? It was not advancing. That I was starting getting inclination that maybe one of our servers was down. So I switched back to our other radar. This is called our sweeping radar, and kind of zoomed in on that severe thunderstorm warning at that time. And then shortly after that, there was that tornado warning that was issued, because you see that's 8:15. That's when the actual tornado is already in post-analysis on the ground, right in through here, right to the northwest of Comstock Park. It actually started out here in the Peach Ridge and 6 Mile area, and then moved to the northeast through Belmont. At that time, we did not see anything on the radar that indicated that, because the radar does take about a minute or two to catch up. So this is at 8:15. Tornado is already on the ground, and so we're waiting for the tornado warning at this point. We didn't know one was coming, but there was the tornado warning going to be issued here very, very shortly.
I'm Abby Smith. I'm a newscast director and multimedia technician.
I'm Billy Nuttall. I work in production here at WZZM.
So George, you called for us to do rotating dinners right after the 5:30 and 6 o'clock newscast. So our first director left, and then he came back before the end of the 6:30, and then one of us left right at 7 and came back by 7:20, and then the other person left, and then the storm happened. So luckily we were all, who needed to be here was here, and I had been directing. That was going to be my job for that night, but I had gotten back and Nick was already sitting down, so I ran into audio and we started just going wall to wall when you said we gotta go, and we went.
I was directing initially the cut-in from the start until we had to go to the basement due to a tornado warning. During that time it was pretty eventful since it got really wild really quick, coming from a severe thunderstorm to a tornado within just a very short time span.
I was working studio that night. I was in here with you, which for cut-ins kind of means that I have a camera set up, and then I just wait.
And wait to get direction from the directors.
Yeah, basically. If they needed some other camera angle or something, I'd set that up for them. But
awesome.
Yeah.
The storms are approaching. It's getting a little crazy in here. There's background noise. Describe the atmosphere.
So this quickly went from me like passively on my phone to every now and then our like weather alert sound would go off. Which you might hear it in the footage. It's the weather tones for the 10-day outlook. Whenever that goes off, that means that either a watch or a warning has started, and that's our way of knowing. And those started like coming in a bit more frequently, and I went from like enjoying my Wendy's to being like, oh, this might be a little bit bigger than we thought.
I heard you say we need to go to the basement, and so I said, let's go to the basement. And then I told you in your ear, and you were very surprised. And you really didn't mean for us to go to the basement, but it was getting pretty close. So I took you very seriously, and I ended up not going to the basement because at that point, Juliet wanted to be mic'd up. And so I ended up having to stay up here, right over there by the director window, and the wind was whipping, the water was coming, hitting the window really hard. Luckily we have some protective film on there, so I wasn't afraid of a stone coming through or a rock, but you know, it got real loud and booms from the thunder, and it was a storm that I've never experienced here at the station.
The wind really picked up, and that's the moment where things, I'm going to be honest, got scary for me because you had offhandedly mentioned what we in production interpreted as we should send everyone down to the basement. So Nick and Abby got up from their spots. I stayed in here with you. Juliet comes in at one point. I get her mic'd up to join us on coverage, and we send any other employee down to the basement.
Until we had a power strike. In which case, I lost control of the switcher was fine itself, but I lost control of all the individual sources we have to take tower cams and weather computers and stuff to get them on the air. So we were in black for 30 seconds. And then I kind of knew, well, this is going to get real here. How much longer before the tornado warning comes out? And then shortly after we got control of everything back, the tornado warning came out.
There was a moment where the impact really hit the studio. The rain just suddenly started with a downpour. The thunder was nonstop from lightning strike after lightning strike. We kept getting notifications, and I specifically remember a moment where you and I made eye contact. You're still talking through all of your graphics and explaining things to the viewers. So we can't like talk to each other in that moment because you're talking to the viewers. But we made wide eye contact as if to say to each other, oh, this is bad. This is really bad.
Anything that you'd like to add, just from a personal standpoint or professional?
I've only been in 2 severe storms like that. This past one, and then maybe my first or second year at the station, and that was a different experience because it was a whole different set of crew, and it was on a weekend, and you know, people had to get called in, so it was completely different. But I felt very much more prepared for this, and I felt like everyone had a handle on it because we were all together knowing what was going on, and we had a plan, and we've practiced this.
So there are our directors in the back, of course, audio people, also our studio crew people. We're taking a look at the tower cam, and I was looking at this area, this bright area. So this is the storm on the ground here back to the west. We're looking northwest from our Walker tower cam. So I'm very interested in this area of the thunderstorm live on the air, and you can see the lightning strike, and it got very scary for a little while. So I went back and started to figure out from the radar that we was working where that actually might have been. And so I'm pointing out there's a little bit of a rotation there, it looks like, on our radar scope. And so that's the area that I was pointing at and figuring out where we were located and where we were looking. We were looking up through that area in the clouds that wasn't showing up. And then we started, I think, to hear the wind and the rain starting to come on in, and so we went back to the tower cam once again to kind of take a look outside. That's our view outside of the window. Yeah, so we went back to the Walker tower cam. We noticed in the distance that the rain had started. There were flashes, which indicates there were power strikes, and then we lost everything because we took a power hit and we had to wait for all of our servers to reboot, our backup UPSs to come back on the air. So we're kind of in the dark a little bit, and this is moments later. We couldn't have been off the air there for more than 20 seconds. Then you couldn't see anything. And so we went back to our weather channel for just a second to just to regroup. And then we took a shot from out at the airport, and this is the one that you could see that it was almost like midnight out there. It was very, very dark. The storm was still like 4 or 5 miles away from the airport. And then we looked at the downtown tower cam for a while until it lost signal. So this was raining very heavily. Went back to our Walker tower cam, and you can see the video signal is trying to process. There was a lot of lightning around. That even went dark for a while. It got really scary, and so we talked about it. This is our portico cam. You couldn't see across the parking lot, and eventually this would be all covered with leaves and branches as well. It was getting a little scary here inside the station, but at the time, we did not feel like our safety was in peril at that point.
So Juliet, the storm started getting real intense after we took a little bit of a power hit, and then things started getting real crazy after that. Tell me about your role in the newsroom before you came in here.
Well, earlier in the afternoon, you had come in and told us that there was a potential of severe weather, and as you were watching it, we were more on alert, more on standby. So after the 5 and 6 o'clock news, we were waiting to, just waiting to find out what's going to happen. But I told all the crews, get your dinner breaks in. If you're working on any projects, finish those right away, because if there's severe weather, you're out of here. So as the storms moved in, I could hear, I'm in the newsroom, I'm monitoring I was monitoring scanners, I'm listening, I'm looking at Facebook pages and other social medias, and then I started looking at the Kent County 911 dispatch calls, and I started to see accidents north of the station before the hardest storms came into our area, and there were several vehicles, that crashes on 131 North, northern Kent County. And then our producer Lily came out into the newsroom and she said, we have to go in the basement. Can I say?
Because I imagine the drivers were seeing this.
Yes, yes. So when did you told her that tell everybody to go into the basement?
We came back on this tower cam after we took the power hit. I knew that there were probably down lines somewhere, and we just fortunately kept on with terrestrial power. But this is what was going on outside, and we heard the roar. We came back and said, hey, where are we going with this? Because this is getting really intense. At one point, I think the tornado warning finally came out. And this was the view from the airport about 6 miles south of where this was. And once the tornado warning came out, I said, yeah, I think everybody needs to go to the basement.
Yes.
And that's when people in the newsroom did some stuff, right?
Right, and so that's when you said that, I made sure everybody went into the basement, and then I grabbed my computer and ran in here with you, because even though we practice the drills for the tornadoes and for severe weather, whenever there is something that we need to alert our viewers about, I have been here in the studio with you to help you and also give you a chance to look at what else what the viewers should know about what's going on in the county and the community while these storms are coming down right now.
We can talk about this is the portico camera We kept going between that and
Yeah.
the portico camera. Your car is out there somewhere.
It is. I don't see it. It's on the right side there. And as we could see, we just watched the leaves are blowing into the parking lot. You can even see some of them coming down right now. And by the time it was over, it was horrible. Now here's this. This is another.
This is the downtown tower cam, and because there's so much rain and stuff going on in between here and the downtown tower cam, we lost signal for a while. That happens when sometimes it rains too hard. This is the Walker Tower cam again. You can see how it's struggling to stay with the video, all the lightning and the power hits and things.
And we could hear the rain. I could hear the rain in your microphone, but also out in the newsroom. It was just so loud we could hardly even talk to each other. So that's whenever I knew I had to get in here because we knew that this people had to take shelter.
Yeah. So I went back to our other radar, not realizing that it had already, you know, as I mentioned, wasn't working. And so we did a little bit more tracking. But by then, most of the activity was done. This is already 8:32. The storm was on the ground from 8:15 to 8:30. So the storm had already stopped producing what we call tornadic damage. We still saw quite a bit of wind with that to the east of Rockford. So there was still probably some considerable wind damage going on, but not tornadic damage at that point. So one of the other ways we track the storm is by looking at what kind of debris there might be in the storm. We have a product that we call correlation coefficient. Correlation meaning we're trying to compare things that are the same. That is what is in the red. When raindrops are compared to net raindrops next to it, we just color those in a single color like red. When we start looking at maybe raindrops and hail, they're a little different size, so perhaps we give it a little bit different color. And then when you start comparing like roof shingles and 2x4s with raindrops, that is dramatically different. And that's what you're seeing here in this brightly colored rainbow kind of thing. This is where there's a lot of debris that has been lofted. It's not similar to each other, so it's all just floating through the air. And the radar can figure that out. It's a little bit noisy, but then again, 2x4s and shingles and leaves and branches are all different sizes, so we really can't get a good resolution. But we knew that there was a lot of debris that had been lofted in the air from the tornadoes and or winds. Very closely, because it's very broad. It's east of Cortland Township. Trying to get right down to the roads.
Our tornado sirens are going off again too, George.
That does not mean the tornado sirens going off again doesn't mean it's an all clear. That means they're continuing to warn. They want folks that haven't been paying attention, I don't know why you wouldn't be paying attention, to listen and get to some place where they can get information.
And I can tell you right now, a lot of the calls here are centered in Walker and Alpine Township. I see a structure fire, I see vehicle crashes, I see a rescue. All of these are in Alpine Township, Walker. Looking wires down, that's Walker.
All right, this is new information. There we go. I'm just going to do now. So continuation of the tornado warning, and again, our radar server wasn't keeping up, so I'm going, why aren't there storms showing up here along M44? But the storm had already progressed that far south, and we would eventually switch over back to our live radar. But again, tornado warning was extended until 8:45 for another 6 minutes at this time. Severe thunderstorm warnings were then issued for counties to the east, Montcalm County, Ionia County. But by this time, the worst of the storm had passed northern Kent County and was continuing to push very quickly to the east. South of Rockford through the Cannonsburg area, I want to turn off the severe thunderstorm warning here because I want to start tracking the storm. And yeah, that's where the area that has been showing signs of rotation. It's been kind of contaminated in through here. You can kind of see it's all spread out.
It really is.
Right in through here.
If we can, and we have the airport camera up, George, and it's just very vivid lightning, bolt after bolt after bolt here lighting up the sky by the airport.
Yeah, the visibilities are very low. I'm sure they've halted flights there. We were talking with our sports team earlier about them you know, delaying the start of
Yes.
the games because of the intense heat.
Right.
And a lot of the, many, I won't say a lot, many of the high schools did that, postponing them till 8 o'clock. And then I came in and talked to Jamal and Mark and the sports people, and I said, so what do you think about delaying for severe weather this evening?
Yeah.
And they were talking about, well, it's sunny right now and it's really hot, but
Right.
there's nothing going on. Well, yeah, this is going to put a stop to a lot of the games, and it looks like we will continue to. And so, yes, indeed, they had to play the games the following day. But again, a very active evening going on. I still had tried to use this radar. It wasn't until after the storms had passed on through that we discovered that one of our servers had actually gone down, but we were able to track the storms with the other one. So that was a little bit of an insight behind the scenes. And then we turned our other radar on. You could see the storms had already passed through the greater Grand Rapids area. We had a wind gust of 40 here at WZZM at 13. Warnings continued till 9 o'clock for about another 18 minutes or so, but the storms continued to push to the east of Grand Rapids into Ionia County, and then eventually these storms spun up other tornadoes over toward Williamston in the Lansing area. Those were also destructive and deadly tornadoes. Fortunately, here in Kent County, we just had a lot of wind damage with those storms and a lot of power outages as well. The city of Ionia, where it is approaching right now. It has just started, or it's been within the last 5 minutes or so in Saranac. If you're in Clarksville, Lake Odessa, Portland, Sunfield, Mulliken, those areas to the south and east, now is the time to head to a place of safe shelter because we've already had damage, wind damage from these particular storms. So any one of these storms could produce winds up to and over 60 miles per hour. I'm not getting an indication of any real tight rotation with these storms, but there is a lot of wind. These bright white areas indicate winds that are up to 53 miles per hour. That is heading toward the radar, and these winds are moving away from the radar. Juliet, this is a wind gust to 71 miles per hour. That's right along the Kent-Ionia County line.
And the power outages continue to go up. Right now it's 49,000 on the Consumers Energy power outage map. So that gives an idea.
So eventually, there were a very, very large number of power outages across West Michigan. At one count, I think it was over 200,000, and this was just the start of all of that damage that happened here in West Michigan. So then we looked through a bunch of our tower cams to see the progression of the storm. This is what our parking lot looked like after the winds had come through. Everything, a lot of very small tree branches down, a lot of leaves covering our cars, but at least we were safe. And then we got a lot of viewer photos, viewer videos that came in, and in the rest of this little video that we're showing you, we are going to show you a lot of the videos and some of the photos that were taken by you, the viewers. So we continued our coverage for the next 45 minutes as the storms continued to move east out of our viewing area. I'd like to thank my colleagues for weathering the storm, Juliet Dragas, along with our production experts, Nick, Abby, and Billy. It was definitely a night to look back on. Grateful that we were safe. Thanks for watching.